we really do have an obligation. And we have a huge obligation to make those choices, to create food that can not only represent the terroir and the terroir of this area, but also utilize that to hopefully inspire people who are enjoying your food, who are willing to give it a chance to discover for themselves the importance of what story that you're trying to tell them.
I'm so proud to be here at Moutcha Bay Resort with BC renowned Chef Will Liu, who is the executive chef for Nootka Marine Adventures, and we are here on site at Moutcha Bay. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for making the journey. It's completely my pleasure. I'm so glad we're here together enjoying nature at its purest form.
Yes, I mean, I'm a little bit jealous that you get to call this your office and this is your day job. I mean, being a West Coast guy, what's your favorite part about living on the West Coast and being from BC?
I think we don't want to say it's the most typical comment, but it definitely really is the ocean. We're so lucky to be surrounded by it. We're so lucky to have the resources that nature provides us. And we are extremely lucky to be able to be stewards of it as well.
Wow, you'd like lead me right into my next question. So as a steward of the ocean, how do you integrate that into your cooking?
Well, the easiest thing to say is making the right choices. You know, it's so easy to draw from the inspirations of nature that are surrounding us. That it's not hard to think that we really need to make the right choices when it comes down to sustainable products, to ideas of conservation, and sometimes idealistic and sometimes realistic.
I love that you were a part of Oceanwise Sustainability Leadership Council. Tell me, like, how did that come about, and what does that mean to you to be a sustainability leader?
This is literally my dream come true, because once going to university for animal biology, thinking I was going to become an artist, and it all tying together, becoming a chef who is able to share that sustainability message through the art form of food and through the service and format of cooking. I was lucky enough to say last year I did reach my dream of working for a nonprofit, which was Oceanwise Conservation, and I got to be the exec chef there.
I think if you're a chef and you're going to take inspiration from something, for you it makes sense that you're inspired by the environment and from nature. What was one of the, like, I guess, more meaningful experiences in your life that really helped kind of like pinpoint down into like environment and sustainability? Because I know that that's a big passion of yours as well.
I think the life-changing moment for myself, and probably for a lot of us in that moment in time, was turning one of the restaurants at a Fairmont that we used to work with. And the big thing was they had a sushi bar there, they had a fine dining restaurant, and they also had an Italian sort of cafe slash nighttime restaurant as well.
Yeah. And
our mandate was sort of like, okay, how can we turn this thing into prominence? How can we sort of talk about sushi and seafood in a way that is speaking maybe way more towards the future? And hence, you know, maybe it's a cliche word now, but it's so important still, is like sustainability.
Of course.
And at that time, you know, no sushi restaurants really were doing any of that thing. So we were able to sort of curate the menu, develop the menu to where we had the biggest variety of ocean-wise recommended sustainable seafood and ingredients, and translate that into something that we were extremely proud of, which was the first 100% ocean-wise sushi restaurant in Canada.
I mean, we mentioned earlier, you know, in the broadcast of this event, that climate change is a very overwhelming topic, or I don't even know what it is. It's like this wave that's coming over all of us. And I've heard a lot of people talk about it in terms of grief, and we're all grieving over and over again the loss of species or the loss of certain things. Like, are you feeling hope and inspired through your work that we are getting back to like regeneration and that, or how are you feeling about it?
I think there's going to be always a realistic aspect, and also an aspect where we can create change with a dream. But we also know for a fact that it's almost like it's the year of restorative species, right? And we know restorative species are bivalves and kelp. And if we can just tackle a little bit at a time, even though I'm sure like climate change has already had a huge impact on everything that is surrounding us, but we can also keep kind of giving back to nature in a positive format. And so if we're going to focus on things like kelp, if we're going to focus on things like bivalves, right, the clams and mussels and oysters that are, natural to this environment, then we're still doing our part to focus on the species that we know have resilience, that we can focus on species that we know are also, example kelp, it takes in so much carbon, it is extremely fast growing, obviously needs to be in the right environment, harvested in a very responsible manner and or grown in a very responsible manner. And the benefits of it, the health benefits of it, the ability for it to regenerate itself so quickly, the habitat that it provides for the environment which it's placed in or that it grows in for so many other fish and so many other mammals out there. We're talking about carbon footprint before too, is number one, we know that kelp takes in a huge amount of carbon. And the fact is, we're sitting on the West Coast, we're in Vancouver Island right now. Yeah. The kelp that we're harvesting is from these environments. So the carbon footprint that we're I guess minimizing is it's literally in our backyard.
So as a chef, I mean, am I right to assume, and obviously you can't speak for all chefs, but I like to categorize, since you're working with food, which is such a large component of nature, is it kind of intrinsic as a chef to want to care about, the earth and sustainability and want to choose ingredients that are sustainable? Or is that not that common? Or are you more concerned about taste and flavor and what's popular and palatable?
I believe that everyone has their own sort of philosophy of how they want to cook food.
Yeah.
And we're, I'm not here, I don't think any of us are here to tell people what to do, but we're also here to sort of inspire people to think in a direction where it can benefit both. Of course. Right? Because kelp's going to provide immense flavor regardless, but also it's probably one of the, it's a restorative species, like something that's restorative species is something Oceanwise is mandating and pushing, especially this year, as something that we should focus on if we're going to be harvesting and taking from the ocean. Of course. And so twofold, I do think we have a way more openness to use ingredients that we're not so familiar with these days, especially when we know, proteins and taking fish, or even taking, the amount of carbon that's produced from land, the animals we like to consume from the land. Of course. Again, we have to, that's a livelihood for so many of us. So we just gotta find that balance. So if we can find other ingredients that help supplement that balance and diversify what we actually have to enjoy in our diets and on our palates, then I do think there's a lot of chefs every chef's probably open to it, because why wouldn't we want to cook something that's delicious and healthy and sustainable, along with creating the best flavors that we can.
And I think people, as they consume, are starting, you're thinking about your vehicle, or you're thinking about, maybe you're starting to think about your clothes, and then of course it's natural to start thinking about like your food, and there's this whole emphasis on trying to eat more maybe locally or organic and stuff like that. And I think people are educating themselves about what is more local, what needs to be imported, and I love that people are starting to connect their food with things like environmental footprint and carbon and stuff like that. And so seaweed is so interesting to me because it does grow in the ocean. It only requires sunlight in the sea to grow, so you're not requiring any arable land or water or fertilizer. So yeah, I think that to me is what's so powerful about it as an ingredient. Like, what are your thoughts again on like sustainability when it comes to food production, and is it eating locally? Is it eating more plant-based? Like, how do we be more sustainable, I guess, in terms of like feeding ourselves?
I think one of my favorite local chefs here, his name's Ned Bell. He was
Yeah,
the
of
original.
course.
Yeah, everyone
Yeah.
knows Ned Bell.
Yeah.
Who was one of the pioneers of Ocean Wise. Very much inspirational to me. But one thing that he always likes to say, which I do very much believe and can answer your question very well, is we need to start seeing the protein as the garnish.
Oh, as the garnish.
As a garnish.
Okay.
And again, like, we work hard. Food is also a form of pleasure, at the same time. But if we start recognizing the protein, which we think is the main component of the dish, as a garnish, like instead of having a 6-ounce piece of fish or a cut of meat, like drop it down to 4 or drop it down to 3. But then you supplement that with kelp, or you supplement that with greens and anything that we know is a lot more indicative of helping our environment sustain itself and preserve
I love
itself.
that, because that's such, to me, I love innovation, I love change, and that's such a paradigm shift from where we're such a protein-focused society. So I think that's monumental to be able to make a shift from having it be, because that's how I grew up, it's like meat, starch, veg, or whatever,
course,
but it's
yeah.
always, your meal is always planned around
Yeah.
the meat. And so, to go from having it, protein being the star of the show, which obviously is important in terms of nutrition, but to it being more of like seen as the garnish and what else is on the plate. And
give the rest of the plate its own like time to shine.
exactly.
Right.
And I think one of the things, again, just in terms of people leaning into more plant-based or vegan lifestyle, especially with food, is that they're realizing how creative and how flavorful other food can be versus just eating like chicken or like whatever, like when they're starting to cook at home or going out for meals or whatever. It's like, again, like not just, eating carrots or like really diversifying what you're eating and what's on your plate, because the world is so plentiful of so many different flavorful ingredients. So I really, really love that.
Yeah. Well, we're really creative beings, right? We're humans, right? So we don't have to just cook the things on land to mix with the things that are on land. Like some of the best combinations are when you're taking, again, from our terroir to our merroir,
Right.
and mixing those together.
Yeah.
And it's the human, I guess, the human condition, the human innovation that allows us to do that, because nature itself would never like be cooking a dish. We're creating that dish. We're making that food. We're melding the flavors of the ocean with the flavors of the land.
Right.
And preferably, we're melding the flavors of now, ingredients that are a lot more sustainable, future-minded, like kelp, where we can pair that just as much as a star on the plate as any other protein. Which then again, we know so much nutrients are in kelp, it's hard to say which one's better for you after.
Right. Well, thank you so much for the work that you do. I feel so inspired speaking to you. We need people like you influencing, all of our individual choices, helping to bring sustainable options to the table, and just showcasing the environment and nature in artistic forms, and being such a strong leader and mentor. So thank you so much for the work that you do and for inviting us to join you at this spectacular location.
Oh, thank you. It's completely our pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chef Will.
Thank you.